Good morning. Welcome to the Discourse am Morgen, which is usually called. This time it's called Discourse Talk. And the reason is you might have realized that already that I'm not talking in German, I'm talking in English. And this is the English version of the Discourse am Morgen. And that's the reason why we call it Discourse Talk. Basically, it's precisely the same as we usually do with the other Andre. He's not with me today. Got someone else who is at least as good as him, and we will talk about organizational stuff, cultural stuff, and this time we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm very happy that I'm here today with Lech Guzowski, and he might say something about himself. I mean, I think that is much more easier than if I would do that now. Good morning, Lech.
Good morning, Andre. I'm glad this is not in German because I can tell you one thing, that it will be a very short discourse because my German is unfortunately next to non-existent. So thank you very much for doing this in English, and I'm glad that we can have this discussion about all sorts of things related to organization and culture and silos in this particular case, because this is what I do day to day. So I help organizations create environments in which their people can thrive, and their organizations as a result can thrive as well, because I don't want anyone in their jobs to be doing a second job. And the concept of a second job is where people have to cover parts of their personality, some of their weaknesses that they're afraid to raise their hand and say, I don't know, or could you help me, which is something that I see quite often. And that second job, performing that second job, requires a lot of energy and drains people's performance, which is neither good for the organization nor for the individual. And that's my job. That's what I do. That's what I help organizations avoid.
That sounds great. Sounds precisely that something is matching to what I'm doing with Red Team Thinking. Could it be that we have some technical issues with your microphone, or is it just me?
Is it? Let me just double check. I think I should be plugged in. I don't know.
I mean, we tried it before already, and everything was fine. But since we are live, we have some interruptions in between. No, we are off completely. That's the beauty of live sessions. Can you try to fix that? No, we can't hear anything anymore. Maybe someone can write in the comments if someone is can hear Lech, but I'm unable to do so. So from my end, everything looks great. Lech is trying to reconnect, and in between, I will try to explain what the good, the bad, and the silo is. Actually, what Lech already mentioned is that silos in organizations can be a bit tricky. Culture is an important thing, and what we usually do is we concentrate on ourselves, and we create some kind of us feeling, if you can call it like that. And this us feeling is sometimes a bit tricky because we try to focus on our own part in the organization, our own team, on our own department. And I realized that a couple of years ago already that there are many departments who fight against each other. It's us against them, although everyone is fighting for the same organization. And this can create a toxic environment in organizations, and it can slow down the whole organization. There he is again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's much better.
I really don't understand what happened because it was absolutely fine when we had a pre-chat show. I didn't change anything. You didn't change anything. But I guess that's the beauty of technology. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's good. It's good to have you back. So I just started with silos in organizations, and I talked about the us and them positioning in organizations, which is what we simply call the silos. And a couple of years ago, I wrote an article about silos, and I said that silos belong to agriculture, but not to organizations. Um, and I received a lot of comments on that. And many people told me that this is an old topic, and everyone has said everything about silos, and I need to come up with something new. That article was 6 years ago. I just researched that. But I believe that silos is still a topic today, isn't it?
Um, yeah, I think first of all, I think whoever made that comment might be mm, really need it really because the thing is we live in a reality where things change very quickly, and we always after the latest thing. And sometimes we want to reinvent the wheel, or we want to put a new label on something that's already existing and just kind of paint it a different color, but it's underneath it's the exact same thing. So I don't think it's fair for somebody to say that it's an old topic and everything's been said. Potentially, the topic maybe has been exhausted to potentially it's, but still, it's a relevant topic, and I think we're learning new things. And as organizations these days, 6 years is a hell of a lot of time. So in 6 years, things can change how we do things. Look at the pandemic, right? No one thought that all of a sudden, from one day to the next, quite literally, we'll move majority of our workplaces and our organizations, our teams, from the office to remote. And then the silos, the exhausted topic, straight away takes on a completely new lease of life and has new challenges and new things that you need to deal with. So I don't think it's fair, first of all. Second of all, definitely still a topic that's very much alive and kicking.
Yeah, that's interesting. I believe that at least in Germany, we realize that there are new silos created, and that's between the people who always wanted to work from home and now can work from home and should go back to the office, and the other part of the society who said, I want to go to the office because I want to meet new people and I can't work on my own at home. And this sometimes, at least I have the feeling, creates a silo between those people who want to work from home and those who doesn't.
You're right. I wonder how much of that is that a silo, and how much that is people that just potentially can't talk a little bit about their differences or their preferences, because we all have. I think there's a misconception around what is a silo and what is just a group, a subgroup, or a subculture within an organization. And having
Hmm.
subcultures is a natural thing within an organization, within a team, and it's not a negative thing. It's only negative if that subgroup is toxic, if it's creating some sort of waves throughout the organization. We can't, as much as we would love to have one culture and everybody singing off the same hymn sheet, that's not possible. You will have a big organization, and actually occurs in small organizations as well. You've got the overarching culture of the organization, what the company stands for, how we do things. But then within that organization, you will have teams that do things in their own specific way, still feeding into that overall culture. But there might be some discrepancies. I wouldn't call them a silo. I would call them a subculture, a team that runs within their own autonomy, within a larger system, but still works as a whole organism.
That's interesting. That's interesting. But we need to be careful that we just must not use a different word to make something better. Um, you said something
Yeah.
interesting. A silo is not a bad thing at all, but it's a bad thing if it becomes toxic. Can you elaborate on what you mean with that?
Mhm.
I think I have an idea about that, but maybe you
It's
can explain it.
when you have a team that starts doing their own thing, regardless of what other teams are doing. They're basically pursuing certain things for potentially the wrong reasons. That is, without consideration how it's affecting anyone else around them, any other teams, or they're not collaborative. They're kind of withholding information. And again, there's confidentiality, there's running with your own thing there in terms of innovation. That's different. What I mean is when it's done for the wrong reasons, when you do things with malice, that you kind of say, okay, I'm not going to tell that person, I don't trust them, I don't want to tell them, I don't want to share. I want to keep that thing to myself. I don't want to give it to anyone. That's kind of what I mean by potentially things going toxic, and then that can turn in all sorts of toxic relationships, that people are talking behind each other's backs, they're kind of throwing obstacles in each other's way. That's what I mean when subcultures and silos start to get toxic.
I believe one of the most famous siloing in organizations is the business departments against the IT departments. Because if business wants something to do their job better, they usually need IT for that, right? And so they create some specifications, hand that over to the IT department, and the IT department should create the solution based on that specification. But the thing is, I hear that over and over and over in organizations again. IT is asking, why does business need that? We would do that quite differently. This is not needed. This is not needed. This is not. We don't understand it. We don't get it. And then this situation, I believe, is the core which creates silos, because the business then says, why can't IT just do what we told them? And IT is asking, why can't they do it like they should do it? And this is something which can become toxic if there's no one in between who can translate the reasoning for the business and the reasoning for the IT.
Yeah.
And if both would talk to each other, they can work quite well. They can create those silos, which is usually effect, because IT does IT, business does business. Business does not need to know how IT works. It just need to work, right? But someone needs to explain to both that both are working in the same organization, and this organization needs to go in the same direction. So it's not us against them, it's us with them. Right?
Absolutely. To narrow it down, I actually quite often see that in two other situations. A very similar one to what you mentioned is when you've got product and engineering, so people who know what the customers want and they want to build that, and engineering is the team that builds it, developers, and build that, and there's often a disconnect between that. And the other funny one is another of my backgrounds is marketing versus sales. I used to work in marketing a lot of times, and you'd think marketing and sales is like that tight, but so often it's one against the other that it's so funny and not funny in the same way to watch. But you're right, it is. We have that us versus them, is that we're opposite, right? That our team, our needs are more important than anybody else's, and everybody else should fall and do what we want. Whether you're in business, whether you're in IT, whether you're product, whether you're engineering, it's that way. So it's that, I think, is that misunderstanding and where we stand in the grand scheme of things in relation to the organization. As you said, it's about understanding that they've got their own needs and that's how they need to work in, and this is how we can help them, and the other way around, right? So it's about finding that balance between the two, but not thinking about these two teams, but then the greater mission or purpose of the organization. That's, I think, what removes some of that leveling, that's some of that hierarchy.
Yeah. That's right. So we just discussed why the title is The Good, the Bad, and the Silo, because it's. I guess I stole that from the movie The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Maybe because the silo is usually an ugly thing if it becomes toxic, but now it makes more and more sense, because siloing can be a good thing, can be a bad thing, and can be even an ugly thing. And as you just explained, this is precisely the thing, right? What I'm always thinking about is, and that could be a different topic, is the topic of diversity, because what you just said is we have different departments in an organization who do different things, and they are specializing on different things like sales and marketing, right? And they are tightly integrated, and they have to be tightly integrated. Um, Everything has to be integrated, but we have specialties in each department. We have special people in each department. One are good people, one are bad people. So that's the good, the bad. And if those get together in the wrong way, then it becomes the ugly, it becomes the silo. But what I wanted to say is that what is more important is the diversity in organizations, because people in different departments also are diverse. They are diverse by nature. No, there are no two people on the world who are the same, even if they are twins, right? And what we need to differentiate here is that diversity is not a thing of quotas or biology. It's a topic of how they think. It's the diversity of thought. This is how I would call it, diversity of thought. This is what is important. And if we can get this across departments, across organizations, this diversity of thought and this idea of diversity of thought, I think then we have a chance to break up those ugly silos.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Diversity is a topic that's obviously on everybody's agenda. I sometimes feel that we are going about it in a slightly convoluted way, focusing potentially on the wrong things. And the way you phrased it around it being diversity of thought is, for me, a far better guiding principle for building strong, diverse teams. Because we tend to look at diversity in the most common ways: gender, race, potentially religion sometimes, right? Whilst there's way much more to diversity beyond that. In the simplest of terms, you can look at everybody's background in terms of how they've been brought up, the programming, the software that they've been given by their environment, where they're surrounded by their family. And that then creates certain biases that we have in how we perceive the world around us and how we interact with other people. It impacts our ideas, how confident, self-confident we are, how open we are to people's feedback and transparent conversations and things like that. And that all contributes to the diversity of thought. So it's about having that and looking just beyond the usual metrics, which I sometimes feel that organizations use as more of a kind of PR stint than actually wanting to address. But that's my cynical side sometimes comes out. But I think what's really important, looking at that diversity of thought, is one part. The other one is looking into what that means. How can we build that into our organizations and have moving some of the decision making, for example, from not the highest paid person in the room to the person close to the data, to the information, the source, right? And then having that to utilize, and then that's diversity in itself as well. We're changing how the decision making is more on merit and the data and the information that we possess, rather than status or position and level within the organization.
Yeah, that's right. I think we can create a whole show just about diversity, because that's a huge topic.
Easily.
And we can do more than one. But what I'm always wondering how things are interconnected. I know that many people just look at one thing at a time. Like now we look at silos, and tomorrow we look on diversity, and the next day we look on team performance, and so on. But I think everything of these things is interconnected. So the question is, how is diversity connected to silos in organization, and how can it help to connect those things to break up the silo?
I'll go with my gut, with the first thing that popped into my head as you were saying that. I'm originally from Poland. I've lived in the UK for over 13, 14 years. And what I've observed there is people being naturally drawn, Polish people, but then by extension, other nationalities, drawn to their own people. So people from the same country. So in my case, it was Polish people, and how people naturally kind of gravitated that and go into these circles, go into those kind of things. So I was there at university, and then naturally, all the kind of Polish students will hang out together. All the Latvian students will hang out together. And I think it's similar concept that happens in organizations. We are drawn naturally to our own team or people who think the same way we do because it's comfortable, because it's easy. We don't have to expand a lot of effort, right? In my example, the kind of the living abroad is because it's people who share the same culture, similar values to something, but most of all, same language, same history. So it was easy. I didn't have to go out of my comfort zone. I did, but a lot of people didn't. Language is obviously was a big barrier. So we're applying this to organizations. It's just simpler. We agree on the same hymn sheet. We've got people who like to get together and moan and complain about things, how things are, rather than doing something about it, being potentially the obstacles. And then we've got people who are always excited about things and looking forward, trying to change things. And I think we just kind of create these little groups and silos, however you want to call that, based on that. So I think the potential solution to that is looking at that and saying, okay, I always gravitate to this group with this mindset, with this thinking, because X, Y, or Z. Okay, I want to try something different. I want to go and sit at the other table, right, with the other group, and I'm open to discussion, to being wrong, to being contradicted, to listening what their views are and see, do I agree with that? Have I got space to agree with it maybe a little bit? Or have I got space and room to change it completely and agree with them?
Yeah, that sounds like an easy solution, and I believe it's really an easy solution. But yeah, usually I don't say but, I usually say and. But anyway, that different topic. I believe
Andrew,
that.
is my video frozen for you as well? Because in my snippet, I'm kind of in this position.
No, it's working.
No? Okay, excellent.
We have this slightly audio issues again, but I didn't want to reconnect again, so I didn't say something. So I hope everyone can understand you. I can understand you, can follow you, even if there are some noises when you're talking. Don't know where this come from, but anyway, great. Now I'm lost.
Apologies.
What was I saying? No,
you didn't want to say but to me talking about how easy the potential solution is to sit at different tables.
Right. Okay, that's the point. Thank you. This but comes because it's an easy solution, and everyone could easily do it if you can write it down and we follow what you said. It's easy. And this is the theory, right? It's the theory. Practice is usually quite harder, and the reason why it's harder is because it's outside of our comfort zone, and everything which is outside of the comfort zone is harder. That's difficult. It's strange. It's not common. It's not used. We need to face the ugly truth, and to facing the ugly truth outside of the comfort zone means we need courage. So even if it sounds like a simple solution, what we need to get out of the comfort zone is, first of all, sorry for the term, but we need to kick our butts off out of the comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
We need to do this. This is the first step. We need to do this. We need to want to do this. Otherwise, it won't work. And then we need the courage to face what's outside of the comfort zone. And this is usually, spoiler, this is the ugly truth. And ugly truth is not something which is just called the ugly truth. It's really ugly. It's inconvenient.
Inconvenient.
It's not,
yep, right. Yep.
It's not convenient. So my English teacher told me, if I don't know the right word, then just describe what you're meaning. So
very good advice.
Yeah, or already 20 years ago. But anyway, this is what we need to do, right? So it needs courage to break up silos. To break up something, it needs courage.
Yeah, we need courage for all sorts of things, absolutely. But then courage is always a necessary skill in my a virtue, value, however you want to describe that, whatever that means to you. But you're right. To break up those silos, is we need to have the courage, the audacity, I would say, to do things differently, to go against, and as I said, sit at a different table. Because when you decide to sit at a different table, the people that you're normally with, they'll kind of go, oh, "Why are you sitting there? What are you doing? What are you doing?" They want to will try and maybe even drag you back in. I like how you're describing that what we need to do. And as you were saying that, it kind of occurred to me, not to contradict you in any way, but I think it's an expansion on that. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, is I sense as if you were talking about on the individual level, what we need to do as individuals within teams, within organizations. I think there's a lot to be said about the environment to create for that. I don't want to get into the topic of psychological safety and all of that, but I think in the simplest of terms, organizations have a responsibility in partially creating those environments where people want to be a little bit more courageous in terms of going out of the comfort zone. And I'll use a very simple example in terms of the ways of working, in how things are done. If people are in back-to-back meetings for 6 or 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, they don't have time to do their work because they're only in meetings, so they're already working overtime to catch up. First of all, that don't get me started on that. But then the energy levels, not to mention the time, the energy levels are gone. When will they have the time to find courage? Being courageous and going out of your comfort zone, even by a tiny little margin, just kind of not going out, but just kind of, pushing it out a little bit, just, stretching your hands out and your legs out just to make it a little bit larger. That requires a lot of damn energy. And where are you supposed to find that energy if you're already drained by being in meetings back to back for 5 days a week? So it's, if the organization wants people to be a little bit more courageous and defeat these silos, it's not just looking at the silos. It's not just looking at the individuals, because that, I would say, is more of a symptom rather than the original cause. And the environment within which we operate creates these silos as well. So it's individuals as well as the environment. So it's and both, not rather than either or one or the other.
Okay, that sounds like it's not that easy as it sounded at the beginning.
I think it's a little bit easier on an individual level when we want to stretch that a little bit. We've got more agency in doing that than we realize. I think that's the easier bit. The organizational bit, that's more, it's definitely not a short term, it's medium, definitely long, sort of longish, medium to long term.
Yeah. It's certainly nothing which can change from today until tomorrow. So yeah, usually two things, Clive. First of all, it's a discourse. Okay, we do not need to agree every time, and I don't think we do. We go in the same direction, but we have different perspectives on that, which is a good thing. Second is, if somebody who watches us and talk about silos, I always wanted to give them an idea of what they can do right now, right today, to change the organization, to break up those siloing in this case. At first, I thought it's quite easy. Just break it up. Talk to each other, easy. But what I just learned is it's not that easy. So what would you say would be the first step which everyone can do today to break up silos in an organization? Might be a
I'm
hard
trying
question.
to think. There's a very simple exercise that you can try. The very simple activity, which basically, because silos, I sometimes feel that occur as a result of us not understanding the other person, not fully grasping what they're about, what's important to them. So maybe not necessarily then having a different conversation, kind of mixing people up and mixing the tables or whatever. I think just having a simple activity where when you discuss things, you kind of turn into the active listener a little bit, and you kind of relay the information that you've just heard from the other person. And you can simply do that. Okay, so based on what you said, I understand that this this and this is important to you. This isn't this what you need. This is what you'd like to avoid, and things like that. Just kind of present that I've listened, I understood, and I've moved the focus point, the awareness from me onto you. And that's just the basic of active listening. And ask the person the same thing. So you can do that in terms of projects that you're working on, or you maybe just have a team building exercise where you get people in the room and have a bit of a chit chat about what people know about one another. And rather than just going introducing yourself, give them the task of introducing the other person. So if we were in that room, my responsibility would be to, based on what I know about you, introduce you to the rest of the room, and do that based on. And that kind of, you would do that you would start with a quick interview, quick chat between two of us to get the information, and then I would have to do the introduction, and then you would have to do the other way around. And again, that moves the focus from me onto you. I'm learning about you, so I get a better perspective of what's important to you, what you need. And I think that understanding, deepening that understanding between us, will go a long way to getting rid of some of the silos.
That sounds to me like this listening to understand, not to respond.
Precisely.
I'm supporting that. I have another one, something which I almost always tell as a good starting point, which you can use right away in your next meeting, right away, this today. And this is what I took from Red Team Thinking. And what we usually do is when we do a workshop, we employ some rules. And one of the number one rules, basically we have two. So number one and number two, which are equally important. And this one is nobody speaks twice until everybody speaks once. This means if you are sitting in a meeting and give everyone a voice, a single voice, everyone can respond to a question or can say something and has to say something. I mean, everyone in the meeting should have an opinion, otherwise they don't belong to that meeting, right? And if you then go around and don't let the extroverts in the meeting just fire up all the ideas at once, but listen to the introverts as well. At the same time, creates the option or the possibility to get an opinion and a view from everyone from different departments in that meeting as well. So that works easy. You don't need to learn something. You don't need to bring some tools. You just need to employ this rule. Nobody speaks twice until everybody speaks once. To let everyone tell their story, tell their opinion, tell their view on a certain topic. And if you do this, then people who usually fire up all their ideas at once will have to listen. If you combine that with listening to understand and not to respond, then you have a very, very powerful start in your next meeting for breaking up silos.
Yeah, because we live in an extroverted world, that's for sure. And as you said, the meetings tend to be dominated by that, and our workplaces are dominated by that as well. It's the extroverts that share their opinions, whilst introverts have a very, very important role to play in that, because they are far, far more analytical by nature, and therefore their decisions are often more informed. They might be perceived as to take longer, but they will be definitely more informed. So we need both. So sometimes you need a quick decision. You just need it on the spot. You need a kind of, let's put it, an extrovert decision, right? Somebody that's, rather than deliberating all of that. But sometimes we don't need a quick decision, yet we make a quick decision. And it's about the meetings being, as you said, inviting everybody to speak. And I think that's part of the environment, part of the culture that we've got within the organization, within the meeting, but also the role of whoever facilitates that meeting. And it doesn't have to be the leader of the team, the manager, or whoever we want, the person that facilitates that, to ensure that everybody had an opportunity to speak. If not speak in the meeting, at least to contribute. There are spaces and channels for people to do. For example, introverts, they might want to contribute afterwards, after they had a chance to reflect and analyze. I think we way too much emphasize how much we do in meetings, where there's a lot of energy, a lot of things, but not always a lot of time for reflection. I'm a person, for example, that likes to reflect and digest, as I say, a little while longer, and some thoughts and ideas come to me after a discussion. It's not that I avoided saying it in the discussion, but I had to take a bit of time to marinate all of that, and it was like kind of all come together. It's like, actually, what about this? An idea comes to me. So, and there's not often space to do that because the meeting happened, the decisions were made, we already went running with whatever we decided, right? So, and that, I think that might be contributing to silos as well, because you then have people saying, okay, I wish we could have done that in a different way, the idea I had afterwards, right?
That's great. That's a very great advice, because I've seen people who are anxious about not being able to respond quickly enough, because they think if they don't respond in the meeting, because they get to their ideas and their solutions after the meeting, they are feeling smaller than they are, or not quite capable enough compared to the other ones who fired up all the ideas, regardless of good or bad ideas, right? But it is important that it is okay to have a great idea after the meeting. I really like that. That's the reason why I just added it to the text here below. We don't need a quick decision always, not any case, right? Yet we make a quick decision. Question is, why do we do this? And I believe this extroverted world we live in. It's this VUCA feeling we have in a meeting, where we feel we need to make a quick decision, which is not always the case. So, but if we understand that, then it's important to say that it is okay to have a great idea after the meeting, because then the meeting was not a bad one. Then the meeting was a great one, because it sparked an idea which could be a good idea, which then after that can be discussed again. So that's not the problem. If we don't need a quick decision, we can up with great ideas even after the meeting.
I think what you're saying here is a part of a greater societal problem, I think. And again, this is at least 10 episodes in their own right, talking about scarcity and how we live in this world where everything's in a rush, right? We have to do it. It's instant. It has to happen now, here, and otherwise it's forgotten. And we kind of live that emergency stage all the time. It either happens now or it never happens. And I don't know whether you must have been in situations where you kind of, somebody's pushing you to a decision, and you say, listen, I need to think about this. There's a couple of things I need to reflect on and decide, and I can't give you an answer now. But they continue to push you. No, I need an answer now. I need an answer now, right? This is an exaggerated example, of course. In that situation, very often for me, in that case, I say, okay, if you need an answer now, the answer is no. I can't do that. That being said, I'm not blackmailing you to say, but if you give me time, it might change, because I just need to think about it. At this moment in time, I can only guarantee you a no. But if you're thinking about if I'm able to move things around, it might be a yes. I can't guarantee that, and I'm not blackmailing you here. I'm just saying the reality. So if you want a decision now, the answer is no. However, if you give me time, it might be different.
Yeah, that's right. And that again needs courage, because a lot of people are anxious to say no.
Yeah. People pleasing, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. That's great. So what I take away from today's meeting is we could talk the whole day just about those silos, meetings, teams, and so on. We just realized that we have enough topics for the upcoming months if we want to do this again. So that's great. I'm curious if I can see that we have a lot of visitors right now, but nobody is commenting. I wanted to say something to the visitors. It's not related to the silos. In the past, we had some trouble that people who wanted to comment on our live streams couldn't because something went wrong, and I don't know what the reason is. I discussed it with the support already, but nobody could tell me what went wrong. So if it's the case that you wanted to comment something on this discourse today, but for some reason it didn't work, then please drop me a line, write me an email, or send me a direct message via LinkedIn, so I can track that. And maybe especially with LinkedIn, I guess the most problem recently was with LinkedIn. But anyway, so if there's something wrong, just let me know. And yeah, we're not talking for 40 minutes right now. Is there something else we need to add regarding to silos? What do you think?
Yes, but I'm afraid of mentioning it because it's a big one. It's in relation to what you said at the start, the us versus them mentality,
Yeah.
linked to mergers and acquisitions. So when two companies come together, and how our expectations of what's happening, how long it's going to take to merge, and what we need to do, and what we actually focus on, is drastically underestimated because we tend to focus more on strategy than culture, which is, I'm not saying strategy is not important, absolutely not, but we don't give enough focus to culture, and we have an expectation that it's, we'll merge the processes and we'll restructure the teams and everything's going to be great. But the real work starts then. Once the restructuring has taken place, the work starts there. And in terms of eliminating these silos, because that's one of the biggest, most pronounced, not necessarily toxic, it's not always the case, but most pronounced examples of where us versus their mentality is visualized in not just how people cooperate and collaborate, but in how people communicate, the words and the language that they use. So I think it might be something for for a different for an episode in its own right as well.
Yes, it sounds like that. Especially if you say it's a big one at the usually at the end of the discourse. uh, we shouldn't do the big ones at the end.
True.
So we definitely need another meeting for that. Um, but yeah, I think not quite sure if there's something we can add today. Silos. I still think that silos is it's not really the ugly thing, but it belongs beneath the good and the bad things in organizations. And eventually, it comes down to how we handle it, how we approach it, how leadership approach it, how the people in organizations, the teams, the department, um, leaders and members of teams alike, how they approach, how they work together. And I totally agree that's a cultural thing, but culture is nothing which you can change overnight. That means if someone come to the conclusion that they need to change the culture for the better, whatever that means, they can't be easily done by just telling people to change.
Mm.
I yeah.
I think silos, and you quite rightly pointed it out. It's neither bad. It's neither bad nor good. It's just part of working together, part of organizations. It's similar to conflict. We want to avoid conflict. We think it's bad, and it's something that we don't know how to handle. Whilst in reality, it's, I don't want to say necessity, but definitely a natural part of people working together. It just happens. And it's how we handle it. That's what's important. The same thing applies to silos. You will have silos are neither good or bad. They're part of it. They can be bad, they can be good. And if they're bad, if they're and toxic, it's how we react. What do we do with that? What does leadership do? How do we coach people to change their ways, to potentially change them, or maybe see for themselves what's happening, and then they can decide what they want to do about it.
Yeah. That sounds great. So 45 minutes, we talked about silos, the good, the bad, and the other things which are going on in organizations. And we figured out that there are much, much more topics we could discuss in a discourse. Um, so, since this was the first time we did that, at least us two together, what do you think? Would like to do this again in the future for a different topic?
Myself? Absolutely.
That sounds great. Um, I then would say that's it for today. We talked about the good, the bad, and the silo. Lech Guzowski, André Daus, in discourse. We will do this again with a different topic. Not quite sure what this will be, but we're happy if you tune in next time, and we try to fix every issue with commenting on the live streaming. I will talk to LinkedIn again about that. Lech, thank you for being with me today, talking about the silo.
Thank you very much. It was an absolute delight.
Great. Thank you. And we are happy to see you all next time for the next topic. So, in the meantime, stay healthy, stay curious, and we will see you soon. Thanks. Bye bye.
Take care.